the right side, to the 10, to the 5, touchdown! 6, going to the hoop, puts it up, puts it in! A fantastic play.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Magnolia Fields podcast, Maroon and White edition from the Richard Schwartz and Associates Studios. Tanner Marlar alongside Cody Blaszczak, as always, diving into the wide, super duper fun, sad, happy, disappointing world of Mississippi State athletics.
I didn't think you could sum up Mississippi State sports in that few amount of words, but I guess you can.
You definitely can. You definitely can. We got a lot to get into. It's been 2 weeks since we've gotten to bring this show. And in that time, we've had a couple big gains for Mississippi State across the board.
I will say, this is going to be a mostly sad, boring type of thing, but we've got a lot of good at the end to come.
Well, and even that, I think you can look at our first segment with a little bit of hope, because let's talk about Mississippi State and Texas, okay? Michael Van Buren goes in, a little bit of hope. Michael Van Buren goes in, draws a start in the absence of Blake Shapen, and, doesn't look bad. Doesn't look bad. I mean, I look at the third quarter, and I'm thinking this is halfway a football game if Mississippi State finds the end zone.
And I think part of that is because of Michael Van Buren. I will also say the defense did not look nearly as horrendous as it usually did.
No. I think this was the most physical we've seen the Mississippi State defense all season long.
And he's listed as a backup. I'm not really sure it's fair to call him a backup, but Arch Manning is also the real deal.
Yeah.
So only allowing 35 points to him, I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and really through 3 quarters only allowing 21. I mean, that's not bad whatsoever considering how bad this Texas team has been beating some folks. And on the way there, you forced 2 turnovers.
There's a lot of improvement.
Look, I will say this. Following the Toledo loss, each game looked better and better. The Florida game, they looked better. The Mississippi State or the Texas game, they looked better than they did against Florida. And now you get a week off to prepare for another game that you're probably going to lose. We'll say that, probably going to lose to Georgia. More than likely. I would say 99% likely.
I would say you are going to lose to Georgia.
Yeah, I would agree. But if you can continue that trend.
Yeah, I think I hate it, but I think you get through the season and you've seen what they have to put on the table. Right now, I don't think you're necessary, at least to schools like Georgia and Texas, I don't think you're necessarily looking for wins. I think you're looking for improvement. Yeah. What can we do week to week to make this team better? Because I wish that they would have played Georgia when they played Florida, and you get Florida right about now, because I'm a little more hopeful.
I agree.
I think it's just a tough draw of where the schedule lined up, because right now I'm not entirely sure that Florida wins that. They probably still do, but I think it's much closer. And I don't think Graham Mertz looks like a Heisman candidate when they play Mississippi State right now versus 3 weeks ago.
I agree. I think that if the Mississippi State team that rolled out of bed and played Texas showed up against Florida, you win that. Not maybe you don't win it, but I think it's a one-score ball game. I think it's a one-possession ball game.
I agree.
And then on top of that, I thought the offense under Blake Shapen looked its best against Florida. They went up tempo. Shapen made some throws. They struggled going over the middle of the field, and obviously the defense was putrid in that Florida matchup. But, like you said, I think if the same team that played Texas played Florida, it's a one-possession ball game.
And I know you're a big fan of Blake Shapen, but personally, I think the offense has looked best under Michael Van Buren.
I think that I'm a fan of Shapen because of the leadership and the veteran kind of feel he brings to the position. I'm a fan of Michael Van Buren because of the unpredictability he brings to the position, because you know what Blake Shapen is going to go do. Michael Van Buren, I think he's harder to prepare for than Blake Shapen.
And I'm not against Blake Shapen. I mean, he played well for the time that he had, but beginning the season, I was hoping Michael Van Buren would be the guy, and he's getting his time now. And the one thing I will say, as a freshman making his first career start against an absolute powerhouse, 12 of 23, 144 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and somewhat can be controlled by him, but he also needs the help. The 6 sacks is what kills his stat line. And we'll say maybe he could have avoided 1 or 2 of them, but that still leaves you at 4. The O-line just has to do a better job. You cannot allow your quarterback to be sacked 6 times.
No, and I'll put the blame square on for at least 2 of those sacks on Mac Pounders. He has had a rough start to SEC play. I mean, a horrible start. I mean, so much so that the freshman, Luke Work, has had to work in at that tackle spot. And under no circumstances should you be having to play a true freshman in SEC play. I think Luke Work is going to be a fantastic offensive lineman, and I think that if he sticks it out in Starkville, he's going to be one of the better ones that this school has produced in a while, since maybe a Charles Cross. But you can tell just by the build and the physicality of this level, he's not ready quite yet. It's good that he's getting this run. It's not good that he's having to get this run because Michael Pounders can't block his way out of a wet paper bag right now.
You know, Tanner, I just got to thinking about something, specifically about that Texas game. Like we said, it was a game going into the fourth quarter, 21-6. If that game is at home, is there a chance? Do you think there is with a freshman? With Van Buren at Davis Wade?
I mean, I think there's more of a chance. I think it's, again, that's a football game if you find a way to score in that third quarter if you're Mississippi State. It really is. I mean, think about even if they do find a way to score in that third quarter, then you're looking at you put up 21 points or 20 points against Texas. If that's a 35-20 game, you're probably pretty happy with it. I look at it and I see no way in which a Mississippi State fan could come away from this that upset. I will ask you this, Cody. Since we saw Van Buren, you were a little partial to another backup coming into the season. And I want to ask you, what does the Texas game say about Chris Parsons' future at Mississippi State?
I don't know about coming into this season. Initially, before Van Buren committed, I thought Chris Parsons was the guy, get some reps under him, new head coach, get him some playing time so he can develop. With Van Buren coming in, I found it kind of hard that he wouldn't be the guy when Lebby pressed so hard to get him and got him to come here. But what I think it tells you is the whole freshman can play.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
I think he's got the better arm.
We'll see where the Blake Shapen deal goes, and I know it was one game, but depending on what he does the rest of the season, I find it really hard that he's not your guy moving forward.
Yeah, and I think Lebby has said as much as that is that Van Buren is going to be the guy going forward. He's got his first rushing touchdown, and by the way, he hit the horns down at the student section, which I loved. I love that in a guy. Even despite the score, I do love that. So first collegiate rushing touchdown under his belt. I think it's only a matter of time before he gets his first collegiate passing touchdown. Maybe that comes this week against Georgia. Who knows?
Yeah, and Blake Shapen is an athletic dude. I'll give it to him. But under Jeff Lebby's offense, a more mobile quarterback such as Van Buren is kind of his guy. So, I mean, you stick to him, it makes a little more sense.
I see more of Dylan Gabriel and Van Buren than I do Blake Shapen.
My point exactly. If you want that offense to work really well, as it did under Dylan Gabriel, to me at least, it makes a little more sense to stick with Van Buren.
That's fair. And look, I think that Lebby's going to have a tough choice on his hands when Shapen does get healthy because let's make no bones about it. Until he got hurt, Blake Shapen was the best part of this Mississippi State offense. He didn't turn the ball over. He was dangerous on the ground. Did he take it one too many hits? Yes. But he also ran the offense well, kept the up-tempo up well. I do not envy Jeff Lebby in the decision he's going to have to make once Blake Shapen gets healthy.
I don't either, but I think if we're being honest, I think if you look at Van Buren and you look at Shapen, the only thing separating them is the experience for Shapen. Now, obviously, there are some other characteristics that play a part to that, but football player-wise, playing in games, I think they're the same. I think Van Buren actually might be more talented, but I think Chapin has the experience in games. I mean, the dude's old for a starting college quarterback.
Played a lot of football.
He's got the experience. But I think pure football player, I think Van Buren's your guy. Get him some games under his belt. He'll get that experience. Chapin had to play in all these games to have these moments.
Yeah, we're going to see. We're going to see. Again, it's a good problem to have because you've got two very competent quarterbacks on the roster.
Or it could be a bad problem depending on the transfer portal.
This is true. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll talk a little bit more Mississippi State football right after the break and who they've got this week. That's all for our first segment. We'll be back in just a moment after word from our sponsors here on the Magnolia Fields Podcast, Maroon and White Edition.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, you know who to call. Call me. Remember, one call, that's all.
Welcome to the Richard Schwartz and Associates Magnolia Field Studios. One call, that's all.
Back here from the Richard Schwartz and Associates Studios. If you're just joining us, we kind of got to chat it up a little bit about Michael Van Buren and the Mississippi State versus Texas game. State had a bye this past week, which thankfully we were also all for with the show. This week, though, taking it to the road again, and this is the toughest part of Mississippi State's schedule, bar none, as they travel to Athens, Georgia to take on the Bulldogs of UGA. Cody, you're a Bama fan. You're pretty familiar with this Georgia team. Bama gets the win over Georgia a couple weeks ago. And then, and I won't make you tell us what happened, but I'll go
tell
ahead.
you. They lost to Vanderbilt. But you know what I have been thinking about this? Seriously, because I don't know. What is worse / better? A win against Georgia when they were number one or the loss to Vanderbilt? Like, really, you did the best thing you could all season and then the worst thing you could all season.
Yeah.
And which is better / like, which weighs more? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like, which weighs more? I have no idea.
Well, and I think once the season wraps up, we'll see that I think the loss to Georgia or the win to Georgia is going to weigh more. Look, say what you want about Vanderbilt University and its history of football. Clark Lee is a heck of a football coach. Jerry Kill is a heck of a football coach, and he's got his guy, Diego Pavia, under center. And look, Diego Pavia is not going to wow you with his arm. He's not the most athletic guy. But the kid wants to win, and he wants to win worse than he wants oxygen. And I think you saw that against Alabama.
And I think Vanderbilt, this win against Bama is also being talked about so much because they were not only were they 2-2 going into that game, but realize one of those losses
was to Georgia State.
Yes, and they really should not have lost that game.
No, they shouldn't have.
This is the best Vanderbilt football we've seen in possibly both you and I's lifetime.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't know. I think about how good they were with Jay Cutler under center, and I'm like,
moving in that direction.
Oh, yeah. Definitely moving in that direction. Definitely moving in that direction. But, yeah, I mean, the loss to Georgia State for Vanderbilt, obviously not great. However, I mean,
that's a team, at least in my opinion, that should be 4-1.
Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
I'd agree. I mean, they go and, like you said, have a very poor showing against Georgia State, but we know the pedigree of the coaching staff there. I think they're only going to get better as the season goes on. I think there's a very realistic chance we see Vanderbilt in a bowl game this year.
Oh, I agree.
Especially now with 3 wins, you got plenty of time to find 3 more, and that's big for the Vanderbilt football program. It is, no matter how you slice it. But that kind of leads into this question this week. With Mississippi State having shown marked improvement in its last 2 games, what's it going to take for them to be this week's Vanderbilt?
A prayer.
A prayer.
A miracle.
Yeah.
I don't think it's happening.
I don't either.
Now, and I say it's happening even more unlikely because Vanderbilt was at home. Mississippi State is on the road.
Yeah, I mean, State's playing in Athens. Now, granted, the home field advantage for Vanderbilt, not great. Not great. There were probably more.
I don't know, man. That student section looked pretty wild.
The student section was wild, but there are probably still more Alabama fans at that game starting out than there were Vandy fans.
I think they said just by looking at the stadium, it looked about 70-30 Alabama.
Yeah, and that's usually the case. I mean, you saw Vandy played the viral clip of everywhere in the SEC is tough to play except Vanderbilt from Saban. I don't think Mississippi State is this week's Vanderbilt, but if they are, how big is it for State?
I don't think it's an if they are. They're just not.
They're just not gonna. Okay.
I just don't.
You refuse to even entertain the thought.
Correct.
That's fair.
Just like I would have refused to entertain the thought that Vanderbilt would beat Alabama last week.
Yeah.
As most sane people would.
That's fair.
It just isn't going to happen.
That's fair.
Now, what I will say is I expect improvement. As we saw against Florida, as we saw against Texas, I expect improvement. And now I hate to put this out like this. It was a close game against Texas, and personally, I think Texas is a better team than Georgia is.
I think it's a better offense.
I think it's a better team.
I have tough on the defense. I have a tough time on the defensive side. With Quinn Ewers under center, I think Texas has the best offense in the country. Not that Arch Manning is bad. I just think Quinn Ewers is better right now when he's healthy.
He also has a lot more experience.
He does.
But my entire point is I think Texas, to me, is a better team than Georgia. I'm not saying it should be a closer game, but like it should in the sense of the way I rank Texas and Georgia. I say that and they'll probably lose by 50 points, but I also think that Georgia has a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder than Texas does.
Yeah.
Especially after that Bama loss.
Georgia is teed off. Just teed off after the Bama loss, and rightfully so.
I'll say this. I'm glad that State is not getting them directly after the Bama loss.
Yeah.
Because that might be a game where Georgia scores 100 points.
Yeah.
So
would not be great.
Bulldog fans, be thankful that you didn't have to play them immediately after they lost to Bama.
Yeah, would not be great. Looking at the all-time series between Georgia and Mississippi State, 6-20 in Georgia's favor. Not pretty. But it's weird to me that it always seems like Mississippi State, and in reality, this is the case, it's like a 2-to-1 ratio of when they play Georgia. Listen to the matchups. They've only played Georgia 7 times in Starkville. Would you like to guess how many times they've played them in Athens?
How many times in Starkville?
7.
So 19.
14.
Math is
14 of these matchups have been on the road. They haven't played them in Starkville until last season. Now, obviously, headed to Athens. Before last season's matchup, the previous 3 against UGA had been away, 2011, 2017, and 2020, all 3 away games. The last time Mississippi State beat Georgia, September 25th, 2010, 24-12. Now, we both have agreed we don't think that's happening this week. So what does a successful week in the box score for Mississippi State look like?
in the box score.
In the box score.
I'd be happy with like 35-14.
Yeah, fair. Stats wise, who do you think though?
I would like to see. Now that I'm thinking about it, you're probably right. Georgia probably does have better defense than Texas.
That's what I'm saying.
I
think their defense is pretty close. I don't think Texas's defense has been tested to the level that Georgia's has.
With a start under Van Buren's belt, I'd be happy if he threw that 144 again.
Okay.
I think Mario Craver needs to be more involved, if you want to be completely honest.
I agree.
He is a guy, as a freshman receiver, that just does not get it doesn't get talked about nearly enough because of really just being on Mississippi State.
Well, when he touches the ball, great things happen. You look at his one catch last week was a big one.
It was 46 yards.
Yeah, one catch for 46 yards. I look at that one and I agree. I think Craver needs more opportunities. And I'll say this. I do want to see a little bit of improvement as far as yardage out of Van Buren in this passing attack. I would say...
the reason I said I'm happy with that 144 is because I think Georgia is a better defense.
Yeah, but I'm not asking for a lot more improvement. I'm saying 180 plus through the air. 180 plus for Van Buren through the air, and I'm happy. Add another 45 on the ground, and I'm very pleased with the freshman quarterback.
I will be happy with 0 interceptions.
Yeah.
If he can do that again, that makes me feel a lot better. I like Johnny Daniels.
I do too. I think he's your RB1.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that's
your
very
RB1.
hard not to like. Yeah.
I think he's your RB1, and I think Kevon Lee's your power back.
Agreed. I think if Johnny Daniels can get 15 more carries, put up 100 yards, somewhere in that realm, 80 to 100.
I think he got about 15 last week.
15 for 78.
Yeah, 15 for 78. I like that volume.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
You get 15 touches and 80 yards. That's all you want out of Johnny Daniels.
That is 5 yards a carry.
Another 5 to 6 for Kevon Lee, and if he can add in another 20 to 30, you're golden. You're golden. Can't ask for anything more.
Unfortunately, it is going to be a rough weekend.
That it is. But I'll still watch. Score prediction.
My hope is something similar to Texas, 35 to 14 in that area. Realistically, I think we're looking at like 49 to 10.
I'm going to say 42-21. I think the offense, and keep in mind, this is coming off a bye. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for Georgia. I think they're going to be a little bit more adept at that. I think that because of that bye week and having the extra time, Van Buren's going to be a little more prepared. I think this team's going to be a little healthier. I see them putting up a few scores. I really do.
It's the hope.
That's the hope. So, yeah, I'm thinking 42 to 21-ish, something like that.
Don't think so, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll talk about the winning Mississippi State football team right after this break. Stick with us here on the Magnolia Fields podcast, Maroon and White edition from the Richard Schwartz and Associates studios.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, you know who to call. Call me. Remember, one call, that's all.
Welcome back to the Magnolia Field Studios, brought to you by Richard Schwartz and Associates. One call, that's all.
Back here from the Richard Schwartz and Associates studios and the Magnolia Fields podcast, Maroon and White edition. Cody, there's more than one Mississippi State football team headed to Athens this week. Who else is going?
The Soccer Dogs.
The Soccer Dogs, the top 5 Soccer Dogs.
Top 3.
Top 3.
Well,
depending on who you look at.
RPI top 3, which is what the NCAA uses for seeding.
Apparently, Mississippi State is not using that because their latest press release is number 4.
That is what they are in United Soccer Coaches Poll, which is
I believe they're the same in top drawer, are they not?
I think you're right. I think there are 4 in both of them. But yeah, so 4 in polls, 3 in RPI, whatever it is, they're in the top 4. And boy, oh boy, these dogs can play.
They can go. Obviously they get to that top 4 spot by beating number 1 ranked Arkansas at home. That is a huge win. They shattered the attendance record. And I really think before the end of the season, especially if they come away from this one with a win, I think especially if they get to host something in the postseason, we could be looking at a 3,000 plus.
Postseason, yeah. I don't think it'll happen regular season just because you don't welcome the type of competition like Arkansas the rest of the season. The SEC is going to be tough as it is, but Arkansas is the top dog in the SEC for women's soccer, and Texas kind of too. But Arkansas, that is a huge, huge win. And to be completely honest, I really didn't know it was going to happen going into that game.
It was 50-50.
2 really good teams, and Allie Perry. If you didn't hear of her before the beginning of the season, I have a feeling you've heard of her now. She locked up what you call the Top Drawer Soccer Team of the Week player, or part of that team. She also locked up a SEC Player of the Week, along with Maddie Anderson being on the Defensive Player of the Week. It's just, this team is playing the best soccer Starkville has ever seen in its program's history.
And I'm looking here at the season statistics. Allie Perry's got 7 goals on the season. Would you like to know who the next closest is?
Aitana Martinez Montoya.
Tell us how many she's got.
I'm going to say 3.
3. So she's doubled up the next closest. I mean, just an insane statistic. Alana Izquierdo has 1. Zoe Main with 1. Kennedy Husbands with 1. And a few others trickling down throughout there. I mean,
Allie Perry, I believe, has scored every single conference goal besides the 2 in the opener to Oklahoma.
She's had 24 shots on goal. The next closest is 11 with Hannah Johnson.
She's been something. It's amazing, though, because she is what's being talked about, and rightfully so. She deserves it. But I don't think people realize that through 11 games, Mississippi State has 10 shutouts. They allowed 2 goals. All of them came to Wake Forest. They are allowing 0.18 goals per game.
Yeah.
The record is 0.05.
Yeah.
I believe they sit. I looked at the record books the other day, and I can't remember the exact number, but I believe right now, if the season were to end, they would finish around that top 10 mark and least amount of goals allowed in a season.
Well, and here's the thing. I'm looking at the season standings right now. The only team to score a goal against them
Wake Forest.
is Wake Forest. Yeah. The only team to score a goal. To score a goal, period. That's insane.
Yeah, 10 shutouts. The one loss was to Wake Forest, 2-1 on the road.
And
Wake Forest is sitting at number 3 in the United Soccer Coaches Poll, and they're sitting, I believe, at number 2 in the RPI. They are.
Yeah.
So, and like every time we talk about this team, we mention this Wake Forest loss. There's no such thing as a good loss, but it's a good loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is, and Wake Forest is no joke. They have played, I want to say, 4 top 10 teams in the nation and have beat all but like one of them.
Yeah.
They are, Wake Forest is something else. And to be completely honest, if State gets Wake Forest either at a neutral site at home, or even if they travel to Wake Forest now, I think Mississippi State wins that game.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be close. But I'm with you. I mean, we talked to head coach James Armstrong before the season, and if you're interested in listening, you feel free to go back and listen to that one because it was a fantastic conversation between us, him, and Alana Izquierdo. But he said this team was special, and boy, was he not kidding.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had the pleasure of talking to James the past couple of years and calling those games, and I remember when we talked to him, I just felt like he had a different demeanor.
Yeah.
And he felt higher, and just it was, I thought I was looking too deep into it, to be completely honest with you. And then they've just come out and they have shocked the world. It has been incredible to watch them. I mean, it's there. James Armstrong is doing something really special in Starkville this year.
100%. 100%. And I'm looking here at the attendance numbers for these home matches, Cody. Obviously, 1,400 being the highest until Arkansas. More than 1,200 more people showed up to that Arkansas match. That is insane.
It was special. It was absolutely special. And like you said, they travel to Athens Thursday, tomorrow for Georgia, and then they come back home. They get Missouri Sunday. And this season's going to be over quick. I mean,
it's
really quickly.
It's wrapping up fast.
Their last game is October 27th.
It is.
And then you get SEC tournament, and then you get NCAA tournament. And we'll see if I hope they can make up their match against South Carolina. They missed that September 26th, obviously, because of the hurricane, and the field was
underwater.
Literally looked like a swimming pool.
Yeah, underwater. So hopefully they get to make that one up. That's about all the time we've got here on this week's Maroon and White edition. Next time, we'll be able to bring you some basketball news as hoop season is right around the corner. But for now, that's all we've got. This has been the Magnolia Fields Podcast, Maroon and White edition from the Richard Schwartz and Associates Studios. We'll catch you guys next time.